Hi everybody, my name's John and welcome back to the channel. I want to help you get hired as a software engineer. But to do that, you first need a good resume when applying for jobs. This is usually your first impression for a company that you're interested in working for. So that's why in this video, I'm going to show you the resume that I used to land interviews at various companies and how I made the resume, what tool I used with a website called Rezi. So if you're ready, let's get started. As you can see on the screen here, this is my resume, kind of at a high level. Let's zoom in a little bit so you can see more details. This is the resume that I sent off to a lot of the companies that actually gave me interview opportunities. So if we take a look high level, there's a number of things that when you're working with resumes, people say is pretty subjective. It's going to depend on which recruiter sees it, what their preferences, things they like. But there are certain things that should be pretty obvious that you want to have in all of your resumes. First of all, your name, that should be prominent. Your email address, your phone number, and you should also have any kind of links to your social profiles. So your LinkedIn page, as well as if you have a portfolio website or GitHub, a link to that as well. But you can see for me, when I was applying for jobs, this was my first attempt at getting a software engineering job. So for me, I didn't have prior software engineering experience, but I did have projects that I worked on. So in this example, for my resume, I listed out 3 projects that highlighted different skills. And I also put in my role, the GitHub link for the code, as well as if the app was published on the App Store, the link to the app. So as you can see on each of the projects, I list out a number of bullets describing what the project is and the things that I worked on during that project, things that I learned, things that I implemented. So I have my 3 examples: my fitness, get to it, dad jokes, all as an iOS developer. Next, I listed out my experience. So what was my actual professional working experience? So for me, I used to work at a company called Deloitte Consulting, and there I had a few different roles. It was a consulting company, so kind of based on what project you get assigned to. But I had the opportunity to work as a data engineer and a business intelligence engineer, and listed out when I worked there and all the things that I had did at that role. And then the last experience that I listed was when I was with Deloitte Consulting. So this was my first full-time job out of college. I was a business technology analyst, and I listed out some bullets of highlights of things I did while I was at Deloitte. Next, I put the education section. So I did have the opportunity to go to college. So I majored in math and business information systems. So I have that listed at the bottom because that wasn't my most recent education. I mentioned it in my intro video. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. That I did go to a boot camp. And at that boot camp, I studied in their iOS development and computer science track at Lambda School. So since a lot of people don't really know what Lambda School is, just gave a brief description of what it was. So it could help any kind of recruiter know what is Lambda School. Last but not least, I have my skills and interests section. Now, I think this one might be debatable for a number of folks. Should you put your interests on your resume? I heard a lot of back and forth on this. There were some feedback that I got where a recruiter said you shouldn't put your interests on there. I had other interviews where one of the first things I was asked was, what's your favorite Schitt's Creek episode? So when you have the interests on there, it gives recruiters a way to relate to you. It makes you seem, you are a person, right? There are things outside of work you enjoy doing. So this gives them the opportunity to kind of relate to you and actually have kind of those icebreakers during that first part of the interview. But looking at the skills, this is the part where you list out the things you're proficient in. So for me, as an iOS developer, I wanted to focus on Swift, Objective-C, MVC, UIKit, Core Data. So listing those skills that I feel good about and I am comfortable with using and I could actually bring to an employer. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I want to show you the tool I actually used to build this resume. So I personally like the website called Rezi. And if you go to the link, I'll have it in the description. It's app.rezi.ai. This really helps you build out your resume. And one of the things that I liked the most about it was the fact that it had pre-done templates available. So for someone who's interested in software engineering, for example, you can come here, go to the programming section. Now they have some pro versions that you have to pay for, specifically if you're interviewing at like SAP, HubSpot, IBM. But there is just a general software engineer template that you can use. So if you click on it, you can say, use this sample. And now it'll take you through all the sections. So you fill out name, email address, phone number, so on and so forth. If you'll notice, I didn't have a summary in my resume. Again, that's another one of those subjective things. Some people will say to have a summary to kind of explain what you're interested in and what you're trying to go for. Others say just leave it off. It takes up space that you could otherwise use for maybe adding another project or another work experience. But it's kind of up to you. I would suggest kind of playing around, see what works. If you kind of want to A/B test your resume, right? If you're getting a lot of responses from recruiters without using a summary, don't have a summary. And then if you are not really getting a lot of traction and you think adding in a summary can help, try adding in a summary. But moving on, you can go through, can add all of your experiences. So here they have things filled out already. You can see the different work that this person did at company A, projects, education. If you have any certifications, those are always great to list out. If you are just coming out of school or out of a boot camp, you can put coursework here. So what were some of the classes that you worked on? Next section is involvement. So this would be great if there was an organization that, say, you volunteered with. If you had some kind of leadership position, you can highlight some of the skills you used there. Great to add here. And then the skills section. So you can edit. See, they have languages. So you can add any kind of languages, systems, databases, so on and so forth. Next, you'll go to the finish up section. And what's really cool about Rezi is they actually will score your resume. So when you hit on the Explore My Score, they give you feedback on what your resume is doing well and what needs some work. So like content, format, best practices, and it'll list out where you can make some improvements to your resume. And lastly, the part I like probably the most about Rezi is, if you haven't heard of it, there's a number of systems that will kind of filter you out as a candidate, known as like the applicant tracking systems, ATS. And Rezi helps you kind of fight back against that. So if you want to have specific keywords that'll put you through and actually get you in front of a recruiter's eyes, this is great. So for example, if we just want to come up with the title, I'm going to use one that I found earlier. And if you save the job description and click, you can actually see where you're ranking well. And it's going to highlight in your resume all of those keywords that you are getting targeted well for, as well as give you some suggestions on how to improve it. Is it perfect? No. Okay, obviously not. But it is a great tool to use to actually help, get across and get through some of those tracking systems. So highly recommend it. The next thing I want to show is there's actually a cover letter generator for you. So, for example, if we're doing Google, these are the skills we want to highlight: title, position highlight. There is actually an AI writer. So when you click on this, so as you can see, the AI writer has actually generated a cover letter for you. So again, it's not going to be perfect, but this is a good starting point. You can kind of tweak it as you see fit and as you need to kind of change it up. Well, hopefully that was helpful for those of you who are interviewing or are hoping to interview. Please feel free to reach out to me if you need any resume review or any help or any advice while you're on the job hunt. Always happy to help. I know what it feels like. So if you're feeling a little discouraged, keep going. I promise you can do it. But that'll do it for this one. If you found the video helpful, please leave a like and consider subscribing so you don't miss when I make new uploads. Thanks, everybody.